Hello, everybody. Hello, friends and frenemies alike. Welcome back to Strange Life. So today's a little bit different. It's our very first response and conversation bonus episode. You know, I love saying, let's talk about it. And that's exactly what we're doing here. After each main episode, I want to come back with someone brilliant to help me dive into your questions and your reflections, or just the parts that deserve more conversation from the first episode on the subject. So for this one, we're starting with ADHD, even though that's episode 3. And I couldn't be happier about who's joining me, the wonderful Sheila Henson. Sheila and I first met through the ADHD group coaching program that she runs. And from the very beginning, I just loved her insight and her warmth and her humor, and I'm obsessed with her because she brings both lived experience and deep coaching expertise. And I honestly cannot think of a better person to sit down for this experiment in conversation. So let's talk about it. Lateness, pattern matching, parenting, work, and even the skeptic's view of all this ADHD chat. All that and more coming up. Okay, so how are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. This is going to be so fun.
I'm really excited. All right, let's dive straight in because hopefully, even though we're both yappers, we might be able to keep this to a tight 30 minutes. Let's see, wishful thinking perhaps. So we'll roll on quickly with question one. So this is from Priya, who is a 20 something year old grad student from Edinburgh. She says, you describe ADHD as being less if X then Y and more like if X 74 then P. I still can't believe that was the approach I took. But anyway, and that really resonated. Oh, thanks, Bria. But the question is, how do you stop beating yourself up when your P does look like carelessness or selfishness to other people, even though it was, your reflex? I'm constantly apologizing and I see that it's necessary, but I'm also tired of it. This feels right up your alley. So over to you.
Well, yeah, I think that when it comes to like stop beating yourself up, there's a few different strategies, I guess, like a few different angles to take. So, like, one of it is just habit, right? A lot of us beating ourselves up is habit. They're the voices that maybe our parents put into our heads, or our teachers, or unhelpful peers, and rewriting those scripts that we have. Like, oh, I'm so lazy. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, or there's something wrong with me. Anything that we say like that to ourselves, rewriting those scripts into something neutral. I'm just like, instead of I'm lazy, like, oh, I'm struggling with executive dysfunction today, or like, instead of like, what's wrong with me? Be like, well, there's my ADHD again,
Yeah.
and
So it's like
so,
explaining instead of apologizing, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
which
just
is really, which
naming.
makes sense.
Yeah. And then, eventually there's just like a normalization, especially if you're around other people who are using that language and who are doing the same thing. Like, that makes it easier. It is a lot harder when there's people saying you're lazy and you're like, I'm just struggling with executive dysfunction. But so who you surround yourself with is going to be another angle. It's like we become like who we surround ourselves with. Our reality changes depending on who we surround ourselves with, what our reality looks like. And so it can feel like there's something wrong with you if everyone around you is able to do certain things and they don't understand why you can't, and you don't fully understand why you can't. Or even if you do finally figure out, but no one else does, you're still going to feel sort of separate or othered, versus if you're around a bunch of neurodivergent people that are also doing the same thing, it just becomes very normalized, and you can find self-acceptance through accepting others. It's so much easier to forgive other people for their lateness or for the same traits that you see in yourself. If you start seeing them in other people and it's you see it being treated as normal, it will become normal to you, you know
100%. And then I think what's worked for me really great is like when I'm in those spaces with other neurodivergent people where I don't need explaining, then it means that I'm not using up that energy. And then when I do have to go out into the other world and I do need to explain, like first, like you say, have made a game of explaining it, let it be an interesting nugget of information why you couldn't do something and did something else rather than a shameful thing you're apologizing for. And then you can, have the energy to play that game of like, aha, here's what happened instead of the thing you would have expected. And it's just nice then when you don't have to do that all the time. So you both make it less of a bitter pill to translate yourself and then also just not do it all the time. And so
Yeah.
I hope
And
that helps, Priya, wherever you are.
well, I would just add one more thing, which is that if you have people who you are around often, have the big conversations not in the moment. So if you're someone who's constantly late and you have friends, family, like boss, whatever, have the conversation. Hey, sit down. Let's sit down. Look, I have something called time agnosia. I can show you some research on time agnosia if you need it. It's a valid disability. I understand that it does affect you and how it affect like my intention and my disability does not change the impact that it has on you. Can we sit down and make a plan of how like we can make this impact you less? And I want you to understand why this is happening and from now on, we're going to have this plan. And maybe that is instead of saying, I'll meet you at 5, it's going to be, I'll meet you between 5 and 5:30. Maybe it's instead of I'll meet you at this restaurant and then you're waiting at a restaurant by yourself, like I'll pick you up. So when I get there, or you pick me up, so then you're at my house, right?
Yeah.
Whatever those plans are, it's all about making that not in the moment, so it's the same problem over and over and over again. Stop when you see a pattern of issues, sit down, have that conversation in a calm space, and if the person is not open to hearing you, understanding you, and working with you, then you should probably reassess like that person's role in your life, if
Yeah.
possible.
I love that. I just keep catching glimpses of myself just staring moonily at your face while you explain things so wonderfully. And that's perfect. And I imagine that will help Priya a great deal. And I think that's lots of people just be like, it's all well and good to give me the explanation if this is a problem, but if I'm a problem, what then? And I think this is exactly the way to go about it. Okay, I've tried to pick questions as far as possible that mean that we're kind of moving perspectives and shifting. And so the next one is from a parent so who doesn't have ADHD themselves, does have a child with ADHD, but wants to be really sort of like forward thinking and progressive in how they approach this, which is really refreshing. And so she says, you talked about how ADHD can make kids become incredible pattern matchers because they spend so much time trying to decode what went wrong and why they're getting in trouble. And so as a parent, I really want that skill and that strength for my son if that's something that he's capable of developing, but I don't also want him to feel like he's always wrong and explaining himself. And so how do I eat my cake and have it, which I think is such a great question. And I'm like, are you sure you're not neurodivergent? But I need to stop assuming that anyone I think is interesting and how they think is neurodivergent. But that's a separate chat. Do go on.
Yes. I think that's a problem a lot of neurodivergent people have once we find neurodivergent pride. We're just like, we're
Yeah.
the interesting ones.
Yeah.
Neurotypical people are just squares. And you're like, that's not,
It's
neurotypical people
not.
aren't probably even real. Anyway, like, but if your kid's ADHD, I'll say anyway. But anyway, it is very genetic. Yeah, so I think that your kid's going to develop better pattern recognition even without you torturing him into it because we still the way that society expects us to move through the world or the ways that are simple are more difficult for us or often don't work for us. So even if you're supporting him in figuring out, hey, what works for you, why is this happening, like all of that, that process still needs to happen, right? He's not going to be able to clean his room in the same way that other people do. He's not going to be able to remember appointments in the same way other people do or have routines in the same way other people do. And he will still develop that pattern recognition and those strengths if you support him in developing those strengths. So being curious, if he's like, I'm really struggling to keep my room clean, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Ask him, what do you think would help? Does it help if I sit in here with you? Have him pay attention. Really encouraging curiosity,
Yeah.
encouraging him to figure out different ways that works for him. And that is going to be a challenge for you. So a big part of this is you, decolonizing yourself and deprogramming yourself so that when he is doing something, you get curious and you start asking him questions and you model curiosity for him so that he will develop new ways of figuring out how he can
Yeah.
succeed.
That's awesome. And because like pattern matching is a game at the end of the day. So it's like you play the game too. We're both like, I wonder, how come the other time you could clean your room and now you can't? Blue's Clues says, let's investigate. And it's
Exactly.
really good because then very quickly that turns into the thing you do with your stress instead of being upset, right? Because like the feelings are still there of like, I really thought my mom used to be, I really thought this chicken would be defrosted by the time I got back from work, and now like dinner is sort of scuppered because you forgot. And so a version of things where she's like, I wonder how come you don't remember this thing, but you remember this other thing that's similar. Then I'm like, oh, okay, let's get into it. And so I hope
Yes.
that helps Karen and whoever else is wondering how do we make the game fun and not shaming.
Yes.
All right, we're moving to Manchester. Why is everyone in the UK? Oh, I guess that's me. That's where I lived for a while, so that would make sense. That's my audience. Interesting. Good to know. I'll keep that one aside for another time. And Jake is a colleague of someone with ADHD. I'm also loving all of this, like, how can I be a better ally kind of vibes I'm getting from these questions, or at least the ones that I selected because bias. Um, and he says that while listening to the episode, he realized that he often misinterprets a friend's lateness or sudden change of plans as them not caring enough to have worked around whatever was going on with them. So after hearing explaining the time blindness thing a little bit better, it's easier to see that it's not about that he's just not even factored in at all. But what's the best way to still honor his needs? Like punctuality is important to him for various reasons, while staying compassionate. And is it just a matter of like being long suffering? Which I think is a great question. To be
Yeah,
fair,
I
because
think
this
that's a
often
great
comes up in
question.
the like autistic friends who don't have ADHD, and then those who either have autism and ADHD or just have ADHD, and they're like, okay, you're ruining my life though every time you do the thing you need to do. So what?
Yeah, and I mean, the first part of that is to figure out if the problem is intention or if the problem is impact. Because sometimes the problem is literally solved by a change in intention, right? Like I had a couple that I was working with, and the wife, every time they would be having a hard conversation, she would get up and start cleaning. And the husband was like, "Oh, well, I interpret that as she doesn't want to have this conversation. She's being dismissive of me. She's not listening to me." But for her, she's like, "I just need to move to
Do
process." Like
something with this
that's
stress.
yeah. So, and that's very common with ADHD. And so once I, in our couple session, like we worked that out, it was like, she was like, "Do you need me to stop doing that?" And he's like, "Nope. All I needed to know was that that was the reason. And from now on, like, we can go sit, if you want to do dishes while we talk, then when we have the conversation, we'll sit in the kitchen so you can do dishes while we talk." That solved, the intention solved the problem. So if the only problem is that you think that the person doesn't care, then understanding that ADHD is not a matter of caring, it's literally a disability. Time agnosia is real. Time blindness was the term that we were using, and the blind community requested we not. So we're
Oh,
just using the more scientific technical term anyway. So is time agnosia,
that's
but
very helpful. Thank you. I didn't actually know.
yeah. And so there's that. It's not just time agnosia that makes us late though. There's other things like planning, prioritizing. There's a weird thing that happens with ADHD. If you don't have ADHD, it's really hard to understand, where if I only have 5 minutes before I need to leave the house, I suddenly need to clean the kitchen. Like it's very strange. Or like I suddenly need to organize my books. Like I don't know. We have all of these strange brain things that are happening for a variety of reasons, and so it just makes it very difficult to leave the house for a lot of us.
I think
And
I found out the fun reason for that one though, and because I love an aside, can I tell you?
oh,
Can you indulge
please
me?
do.
But and so it's because when we're about to leave, you have that spike in stress and the hypervigilance of like, what am I about to forget? And then so it very quickly runs the sequence of whatever it is that you tend to do when you have that spike in stress. So when adrenaline runs through you, whatever you tend to do, like if you tend to like start looking for something to fix or fixing something, then that's what you'll notice. If you tend to like suddenly get a running stomach, then that's what will happen to you, or sneeze, or if you suddenly get horny, like whatever you tend to do with a spike in adrenaline will happen as a result of your adrenaline being spiked. So people are like, how come I reach for this thing when I'm like, yeah, because that's the profile, that's the chemical profile, and that's the action that goes with that chemical profile. And so, yeah, that's what that is.
That's
It's just
really
really fun to
interesting. I
know.
feel like it might be different for me because I do tend to like suddenly clean, but I think that part of that for me is that that is one of my least favorite things to do is clean. I hate it, and that is one of the things I will put off. And I also really like a clean house, and so that's like a struggle that I have with myself. And so if I have 5 minutes, because I'm so that adrenaline spike
Yes,
gives me that
exactly.
motivation.
I can
I'm
do it
like,
now.
"Oh, I can do it. I can clean. I've been trying to clean the kitchen all week. I haven't been able to do it. Right now I can. I'm going to just like this is my one shot. Like I
That's
have
the
to
same
take it."
thing. That's what ADHD women do with stress is to
Yeah.
fix the problem. Fix the thing. You're like, oh, I finally have
Yes.
juice. Let me go stop being such a problem and be better. And so that's either fix your face, fix the environment, fix the cleaning. whatever the thing is, you're like, oh my God, I've got so
See.
much zip, zip, go now. And you're like, it's got to be put to this use. Oh, fun times. But
Oh
yes,
man.
and so this
Yeah.
is good stuff to take. I also think what's really interesting about this question is, like you often get from neurotypical people, this assumption that only people who have obvious complexities need to understand themselves. But like, clearly, if there's a reason that even after you get that it's not about you, you still really, really want them to honor your need of punctuality. Like, what is that? Like, is there any way for you to understand more about what that does for you? I don't know. Was your parent never on time to any of your recitals? Like, is there something about that that means that in getting to know it better, it can be less a, this is a need that can't be compromised on, and more like, this is why this is important to me, but here's how I can here's how it can not matter in this situation because I understand what's happening. But the only way you can make needs bigger or smaller is if you get them. And so
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that's also part of it.
Yeah, I
Fun, fun.
definitely have a lot of autistic friends that are just really dysregulated by my lateness, and that's just that need for clear expectations and things like that. And so we have a lot of different tools that we use. Like some of them I mentioned earlier, like having a window. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, instead of I will meet you at 5, it'll be like I'll meet you between 5 and 5:30. That for me personally is possible, right? To I don't some
Exactly. Like, I'll
ADHDers
aim
that
for five and I'll get there in
yeah, yeah,
around
yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. Like for some ADHDers, even that window might not work.
Yeah.
Or I really like the I'll meet you at your house. So then it's like, well, you guys can just stay in hyper focus until I get there, or you come pick me
Exactly.
up, and then we can hang out while I'm getting ready, and you're in charge of when we get together because that's when you show up. So I can't be late. So things like that can be really helpful. There can
Yeah.
also just be a conversation because for a lot of ADHDers, we can, not all of them, but for a lot of us, like for myself, I can be on time, but it takes so much preparation, mental energy, emotional energy. It takes a lot out of me. And so I prioritize things like doctor's appointments or, work, my clients. I'm almost never, unless there's a extenuating circumstance, I'm not late for doctors or clients, like work. Um, but that's exhausting. And if
Yeah.
I have to also do that for my friends, like I just would, I don't know, I would hang out with my friends less. It would just take too much
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
me. So, but if I
Exactly.
have one friend who I see every so often and they're like, seriously, you being on time really matters to me, then I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna pretend like you're the doctor, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna just
That's
make it
the
happen
thing.
and schedule my whole day around being on time for you. But I do like an acknowledgement of what that costs me. That means by the time I get to you, I might be thoroughly exhausted. Like,
And that's the thing. And so when you can know why the need is so important, then you also know that it's specific to you. This is not just a people should, but it's a I happen to need this because, and I understand even if there is a way, it's a lot. Like, is this worth what I'm asking them to do? Yada yada. Like, I think in general, so much of what excites me about so much conversation about neurodiversity is it's not just that finally we get seen or get accommodations like we needed and all that. I think it's also broadly improving how human beings engage with relationships full stop, like less of the like this ought to be oh reflexes, and you're like no, like there's too much specificity now. It's better even if we all had the same reflex, it would still be better to be specific about negotiating what do I need, what do you need, and then how do we translate the affection we have for each other into love the way we want to be loved. And so
yeah, I
oh, I wish you luck. Thanks.
totally agree. I want to also add just really quick that sometimes it helps to have an understanding that a lot of these things that we're told is just what is right is cultural. And like when I lived in Brazil, time was not a problem. Like me being on time was not a problem. When I was in Germany, it was a problem. Like it's it really like it's some of those things. And like when I'm with my Italian family, interrupting is not a problem. But when
Yeah,
I'm with my Polish
exactly.
family, maybe it is. So like there's a lot of these things that we just take for granted as like we've been told like this is rude.
Yeah,
Remember, like this is rude for me in this I've been taught this is rude. Anyway, it could be cultural. And when you live in somewhere like I live in the United States and we have this mix of so many cultures, you have to just be open to the fact that your way of being is going to be different than other people's way of being.
yeah.
That's just
Like,
reality.
everybody's got their baggage, and it's so much more fun when you acknowledge it. Like, what's that big old bag you're carrying? Do you want to open it and trade pieces? All right, let's go to Sophia, 42, a project manager. And she says she doesn't have ADHD, but several people on her team do. And the point that ADHD is judged so differently depending on whether society or the group or the environment around you sees you as special really hit her hard. And so as a manager, she says, how can I create an environment where their contributions are valued, even if they don't come packaged with the genius label? Like how, and I remember thinking about this question because generally I did wanted to highlight the like the workplace stuff or like what are some of the good accommodations we could think about. But I was also trying to think, I was like, I wonder if she's trying to get at the idea that sometimes like weirdos look obviously special and they're like, oh, I should really listen to this. And then sometimes they seem like they're not. And so they're like, is it just the treat everyone like they might be a genius? Or is it the like, is there some way to encourage it out of them because all weirdness and all diversity of thought is by definition useful? And so I don't know, maybe I'm just repeating the question she already asked, but I kind of half didn't understand it, but thought it was important to include it. So here you go. Do with that what you can.
Yeah, I mean, I took from it like some people with ADHD aren't gifted intellectually. Maybe they're gifted with hair or mechanics or what. Everyone has gifts, you know. I'm much more gifted socially than I am with anything else. I am just if you just let me talk about stuff, I'm much better about talking about things than doing things. So like, yeah, their gifts might actually not be present at work.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks for people to have a job where their gifts are not really seen, and they can still be appreciated as part of the team, right? That doesn't mean that they're useless just because they're not special or whatever. And so I like this, like, how do I appreciate people, but also, yeah, how do I bring out their gifts? How do I find their gifts and bring them out? Which is one of my favorite things to do. I love leading groups, like when I was a teacher, I taught in a behavioral classroom. So I had at some points like 8 staff in the classroom with me, and figuring out like, oh, one of them is really good with music and can teach a music class to the kids. And this one is really good with art and can teach an art class to the kids. And this person's really good at taking data. So how about you do this while she's taking the art? I think that that's really fun. I like to think of it as like being Professor X and they're your X-Men. And some of the X-Men's powers are very clearly helpful, and some of them you have to figure out a use for, and that's your job, you know? And I think you can make a game of that. But the other part of it is that we won't be able to see someone's gifts if they're dysregulated. We won't be able to see someone's gifts if they're constantly in fight or flight. We won't be able to see someone, well, sometimes, but sometimes that's your gift, is being in
Yeah.
fight.
You're like, oh, cool under pressure. I wonder where that's from.
Yeah, that might be mine. But you know, so but the more that you can accommodate the person, understand what their needs are, then the more you're going to be able to see the good things, you know, that they can do. And so really learning about ADHD accommodation and talking to people about what accommodations they need, and maybe they don't know what accommodations they need, but just create a space where it is accepted for them to be honest about their struggles. Where like at that school that I worked at, I was just like, it is really hard. I'm gonna write you the best IEPs that you've ever seen in your life, and I'm gonna be 3 days late. Like that's what's gonna happen. And they were so understanding of that, you know. And like the IEP coordinator was just like, yeah, your IEPs are so good. I can wait a couple days or whatever. So like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if she would have put that exactly those words, but you know, they were willing to accommodate me because I had, you know, that was what I
Yeah.
needed in order to do what was going to be the special thing. If I had to turn it on time, maybe it wouldn't have been as good. So figuring out, like making it safe and open for people to be honest about their struggles and being collaborative about solving those struggles so that then they can allow their strengths to shine.
I really like that. And I think something else that I'm not getting from the question now that you've like expanded on it is like I feel like almost there's this search for the like, what is your special skill to justify all this working around you that we're having to do because you got so many
Yes.
problems. And so it's almost like apart from just the like ways in which to always, because everyone has something and how to bring it out, etc. It's also the, even if like all they do at the end is their job in a viable sense, and you have to do all this accommodating in order for this disabled person to be able to do their job to the standard that, you know, that justifies them being in this role, then that's still worth doing. And not just in the sense of like, oh, it's good to take care of your neighbor and fellow man, which it is, frankly, and the whole game of the economy should involve everyone, because why would we make a game that has to include anyone, exclude anyone? But it's also just you end up building better workplaces when you try to when you make sure the accommodations mean that any kind of person who could do this job excellently can can function here and can thrive here, for various different reasons. And so I think that's also part of it, is the sort of like how to make someone feel valid and valued as an ADHD person, even if there's nothing obviously special about them in that way. Then it's like, yeah, give them the accommodations they need, and if there's special sauce, it will come out. And if they're just a human being doing a great job, like at the thing you've hired them for, then that seems like a really worthwhile use of your time and effort as well in building whatever accommodations are needed. Yeah,
100%. Accommodations help
super
everybody.
exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the nice thing about, like, I remember someone saying this, that like one of the upsides of starting to build your community or build an audience of people is to start being like, oh my God, the world is full of such nice people. And then you're like, oh wait, this is literally the people who self-selected into watching Black women rant about intellectual or mental disability. So that's fair. But still, and actually that does lead us nicely to our last question. So Alan 68, who's actually from Ireland, so that's cool. Hey. He says, I found the chemical spectrum metaphor from serotonin dust to adrenaline gas, etc., fascinating. But he admits that he is still skeptical, because if ADHD is just brain chemistry in motion, then why are we treating it like a personality difference or culture instead of a straightforward medical condition? Are we just romanticizing dysfunction?
Ooh, what a good question.
Yes.
What is ADHD even? Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about chemicals is that everybody's personality and being is made up of chemicals. Like you are a combination of your chemicals and your experiences. That's all anybody is. And if you are a good person, you got real lucky with those chemicals and those experiences. And if you're a bad person, I'm so sorry, you didn't get the right chemicals and the right experiences. It's just straight up. That's all it is. And that's why I can't hate anybody, because it's not your fault. Anyway, like doesn't mean it's not your, there's no accountability, but like that's all. We're all
Yeah.
just, it's somebody rolled the dice.
At most, I can
So
grieve it because, like, oh,
yeah,
bummer. But what's the point in hating you with your
right.
chemical situation and your
Yeah.
circumstances that shaped you?
Yeah, I can say I don't think you should be near me, but I don't need to hate you. I can say I don't want you in a position of power, but I don't need to hate you. And so, so when we think about it that way, there is a difference in chemicals that is it creates dysfunction in ADHD. But remember, to different people, it's different levels of dysfunction and just different function. So that's why there's a lot of ADHDers who will just be like, it's my superpower, and literally like does not disable them at all because of their privilege, because of their specific symptoms, because of their, positionalities and the people around them and what supports they have and all these things, right? And then there are other people who are like, I can't find a single good thing about my ADHD. This is just purely a disability and it just messes me up. And you can say that it's just society messing it up, but I'm pretty sure that my brain is not working properly, like regardless, right? Like that is definitely some people's real experience. And I think anyone discounting either of those experiences is being small-minded, right? Like that both of those are real. I definitely find myself somewhere in between, where ADHD disables me in some ways and I think it really empowers me in other ways. I don't think I would have started my business. The impulsivity, for example, is disabling. It makes it so that I'm really bad with money, and it makes it so that I make impulsive choices that are not always good for me, and it allows me to just do things and not question myself too much. And so it's enabled me to start a business. It's enabled me to like move to different countries. It's enabled me to do a bunch of things that I wouldn't go up to people that I'm just like Daisy, I'm like, hey, I really liked your podcast. We should collab on things. I really like you. Let's hang out. Like, I just do things sometimes, and that can be good things and bad things, right? So it does. So is it chemicals that make that happen? Yeah. And it's my personality. I can't separate myself from the
Yeah.
chemicals. That's not possible. If you've met anyone with schizophrenia, my brother's got schizoaffective disorder, bipolar schizophrenia, you just see how the chemicals, when the chemicals change, how much it can impact a person's entire personality in a second. And that can happen to anybody, right? Like something like that can happen to anybody at any time. And so, I mean, if you've seen someone with a brain injury too, like that suddenly they're irritable, suddenly they have addiction issues. My dad's a sports writer, and he has written about different athletes with post-concussion syndrome, and how suddenly they're just a different person and having all of these. Now they're cheating on their wife that they were always loyal to, and now they're doing
Yeah.
drugs that they never did that before. And so anyway, like our biology, our chemistry, can makes us, and so we can just make the best of it. And so when you look at people, there's a lot of different ways to be a human, and that is impacted by our chemicals. And we can look at, okay, well, this person is this way. I don't always know exactly why this person is this way. I don't know if it's because of something that happened in the womb. I don't know if how much of it's genetics. I don't know how much of it is the impact of their parents. I don't know exactly why. It's probably always a mix of all of those things that is so nuanced that I not, with my mere human eyes, I cannot see, this, and yet I must accept that that is the person right now. And what is the best way for me to engage with this person? What does this person need? And then for myself with my ADHD, it's just how do I make the best of what I have? How do I look at, okay, well, my impulsivity helps me with these things. My struggles with time, in fact, help me with certain things. So how am I going to work? I'm not going to do a little bit of something every day. I'm going to do it until I have a big chunk of time, sit down, hyper focus, lose all time and space for a period of time, and get done what might take someone else and if I fight that, if I try to make myself do things in a neurotypical way, quote unquote, then in the way that society tells me to, I will fail. It will become a disability. But a lot of the time, if I accommodate myself and I do things in the way that my chemicals want and to just work with the chemicals, then I am able to be successful. And for myself, that looks like a master's degree, being on the board of directors for an environmental education nonprofit, running my own business, having a communal house space with dogs and chickens and a garden, and being able to have really good relationships with other neurodivergent people, and also having a messy room and and you know forgetting to eat sometimes. Yeah.
And I love everything about that answer. And I think ultimately, because so much of finding the right configuration between whatever chemical composition you have going on and then whatever shape of life you would like to see happen is puzzle solving. It's figuring out, oh, if this, then ooh, which wiggly wobbly chemical composition means outcome of master's degree. But to figure out those things means looking deeply enough at everything in order, and that's all romanticization is just looking deeply at things, and also like creating culture, creating personality. That's how collectives come together, and most of the times the only way you end up finding those puzzle solutions that mean that how you are composed means we still get to have the kind of society that we all want to have is if you can make a group of people realize, oh, this chemical situation you've all got in common. So be friends around that and chat to each other about how to make it work. And so yeah, I think it's both. I feel like all questions that are like, is it this or this? I just immediately see that like that meme of that girl hoisted by the town. They're like, ¿por qué no los dos? I'm like, it's true. It's true. Okay, now I feel like the last question is all for you because we have managed to keep the yap time down, which is crazy of us. So, what about you? Do you feel like there is anything left unsaid between what was in the original episode and what we've kind of circled around here? Um, what what haven't we said about ADHD?
There's always more to say about ADHD. I made a whole career about it. It's the most ADHD thing ever that I listened to that episode, a month ago or whatever, and loved it and immediately called you or whatever. But obviously have forgotten like
Completely,
all the
completely.
details of it, and then couldn't find it like for the last couple of days. I was like, how do I re-listen to this? Like, I don't know where it is, and then only thought to message you about it an hour before now we started this, and then of course you didn't get back to me. So I don't remember what the first one was. I just remember it was great. And
I'll take it. But oh, to be seen is to be loved. So yeah, I hear that.
yeah. So, but I mean, I love what you said about it being a puzzle, because that's literally what I've built my job around. It's just I love taking clients and um, looking at trying to figure out who they are and what they need, and that puzzle is really helping them puzzle. Oh, saying that I do not have a stable internet connection.
Don't listen to it. It's a dirty, dirty lie.
Okay.
You're coming through loud and
Okay.
clear for me. Listen to that
Okay.
trickery of that computer.
Yeah.
It's a witch. But
Okay,
yeah.
great. Um, so, um, Yeah, I love that this puzzle thing, and I think that whatever comes up with ADHD, whatever your question, just starting with curiosity, starting with the understanding that people do well if they can. And I think I stole that from Ross W. Green, but I think
Good
that's who
one.
said.
Worth stealing. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was supposed to be children do well if they can, but I think it's people do well if they can.
Yeah.
And sometimes their chemicals and their experiences make it so that they can't. And sometimes that's changeable. Sometimes that's changeable in the moment. Sometimes that's changeable in the long term. But we have to work with the assumption that if it's our friend, if it's our coworker, if it's someone who seems to care about us in every other way, and their ADHD is affecting us negatively, we can assume that there is something that is stopping them from doing well. And if you are an ADHDer and you know that you care, you feel in your body that you care, but you're acting like you don't care, um, you do. Like it's not that you don't care. There is something preventing you from doing well. And if you don't have ADHD, maybe you have autism, maybe you have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, maybe you have bipolar, maybe you have BPD, maybe you have whatever, or maybe you don't
Anxiety.
have a diagnosable condition, but you have some block, like, and you're trying to do well and it's not happening. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you as a person, but it does mean that there's something blocking you. And be curious instead of judgmental and figuring out what that is and how to get around it. And if the world can just be a little bit more curious about ourselves and about each other, then I think we'll all be okay.
I'm inclined to agree. Oh, Sheila for president. All right. So that's it. There we go. That is our first ever Strange Life bonus conversation episode. And what a joy it was to do it with Sheila. I think you can now understand why. So, huge thank you to her and also to all of those questions who inspired today's discussions or which inspired today's discussions, whether they were actually written in or whether they were prized from the hands of nearby friends. But in any case, what's done is done. If this episode resonated, the best way to support Strange Life is to share it with a friend, leave a review, or just keep the conversation going in your own circle so we can slowly but surely change the world. And if you want more of Sheila's wisdom, and why wouldn't you? You can find her at sheilahenson.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. And so until next time, take care, be gentle with your wiring, and let's keep talking about it. Hey!